Hey everybody, it's me, John again. How's everybody doing? Alright, so listen. Again, episode 3 of my series on challenging everything that I believe as a Christian. Remember, this is just a personal journey that I happen to be putting onto video for you guys to see what I'm going through, see the questions that I'm asking of myself, and trying to seek the truth. I'm coming at this from the standpoint of a person who does not know anything. All right, so that being said, another thing that I've found that people use to justify or to prove the existence of God is morality. In other words, we have a lot of common morals, a lot of common standards throughout the world, throughout history, such as, murder is wrong, theft is wrong, that sort of thing. And it had to come from somewhere. Those things just didn't pop up. And so, therefore, it had to be somebody who set that standard at the beginning. And that standard must have been set by God. The question then, is this proof that there is a God? Well, a Christian website called Strange Notions says this. In the case that we have no moral standard against which human desires can be judged, for every desire will spring from the same ultimate source, purposeless, pitiless matter. Now, again, this is a Christian website, so they're using morality to justify the existence of God. But the question is, does this show that there is a God? No. You can't use morality to prove that there's a God. Moral standards could have very easily been set by society. It's not hard for people to figure out that killing everybody else isn't a good idea, especially since we rely on each other. It's, theft. It's also not a good idea, to steal. And I don't think it takes a God for people to understand that, stealing from everybody else, in the end isn't good. So maybe it took people a little bit of time to figure that out. But really, it shouldn't have taken them that long to figure out. Society can set standards. Because don't forget, the standards that we have in our society today aren't the same as they were when I was growing up. And if you're older and listening to this, they're even farther removed from the standards that you had in society when you were growing up. So society sets moral standards, what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, and all that stuff. And it's really dictated by, what is going to help society survive. Does that mean God didn't set moral standards? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it doesn't prove the existence of God either way. All right, so the Council for Secular Humanism, this is a quote from them. It is no solution to say that God commands only what is good. This response presupposes that we can tell good from bad, right from wrong, or in other words, that we have our own independent standards for moral goodness. But if we have such independent standards, then we don't need God to tell us what to do. Okay, so in other words, what they're saying is people believe that God is good. And because they believe that God is good, they believe that all of his standards that he says, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, are good. But here's the problem. How do we know that God isn't pulling the wool over our eyes? How do we know that God really is good? If he was a deceiving being, then wouldn't he then, lie to us and tell us he's good? And like suckers, we believed it. But if we are able to tell and understand that everything that he does is good, then we must already have known what is good. And so therefore, we don't need God to tell us what is right and what is wrong. Okay. Now, again, this does not disprove that there's a God, just like the other statement does not prove that there's a God. But what it does prove is that God is not necessary for morality. Right? And even the Bible kind of says that. At the very beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he, 6 days of creation, while seventh day was of rest. But the tree that Adam and Eve ate from was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In other words, they ate and they knew what was right and what was wrong. They knew good and they knew evil. So man knows what to do good, whether or not they believe in God or not. And the only way a person could know that God is good, or, not only the only way, but it is possible that we know that God is good because we already knew what was good. Does that make sense? So even though it's a humanist website, a humanist person saying this who doesn't believe in God, they got a good point. And Christians have been saying for years that morality is proof that there's a God. Jews have been saying the same thing. Other religions have all been saying the same thing. But morality is definitely not proof that God exists. Because how do we know that he's good? All right. This argument, then, in a sense, has to go towards the unbelievers. Because society very well can dictate what is right and wrong, based upon what is going to keep the society moving forward, sustaining society, making it viable and productive. All right, now let's move on. Okay, this is the one I'm going to spend a lot of time on tonight. It's an argument based upon miracles. The reason why I'm going to spend a lot of time on this today, as a matter of fact, is going to take up the rest of this video, is because when I first started it, it seemed like a non-argument. There wasn't much to it. Because basically, what's being said is that, if you can prove that there's a miracle, something supernatural happens that can't be explained, then there must be a God. And to be honest with you can't argue with that statement. The problem is, proving something is miraculous is pretty hard. And so I thought about it for a few hours, maybe a day, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm done with this section. But then the more I thought about it, the more I looked into it, the more I realized there's a lot more to this argument. And because this is my own personal spiritual journey that I'm going on, it reminded me of a few things that happened early on in my Christianity, and to be honest with you, things that happened before I even became a Christian. Supernatural things. So, let's move on with this. Okay, so, miracles. The very definition of miracle requires that there is a God. So if something can be proved to be miraculous, that means there's a God. But remember, the hardest thing, is proving something miraculous. The question, therefore, is, do miracles exist? Or are they simply events that we can't quite explain yet? Okay? Are they just things that we can't explain yet? Because as smart as we are, as much as we have in science and technology, we don't know everything. And we may not have gotten, that science yet, to prove whatever, we're trying to say is miraculous. Okay, the problem with this is that, again, scientific knowledge, of a caused event just may not have happened yet. In other words, people see the sun move, in Portugal in an odd way. They see what appears to be apparitions. They see medical anomalies, things that should not have happened. Weather patterns that should not happen. Things, that they can't explain. And they say it's a miracle. But what if it's just something perfectly natural and we just haven't discovered it yet? And science hasn't discovered it. Therefore, because we can't know the future, because we cannot know that science won't be discovered later on, it is extremely hard to prove something miraculous. Along with this is what some call the divine experience argument. Okay, now, divine experience, in one sense, is proof to the person with the experience. Not necessarily for the person listening to that person tell you about their experience. Because it could be something that played a trick on their mind. Could have been something that, the person may have misinterpreted a situation. And so, what I'm saying is that I've had lots of these personal experiences, and these are the things that have come up into memory within this past week or so when I've been going through and looking at miracles. So that these things have become proof to me. I don't expect people to look and say, oh, well, he said it. It must be true. Okay? So, we're going to go through some of this. Okay, so many people throughout history have had spiritual experiences. Does this mean that there's a God? No. Many people believe all sorts of things. That doesn't mean that it can be trusted. I know a lot of people, myself included, who, put a lot of, foreign substances into our body, let's say, like drugs and alcohol and things that have caused us to not quite be seeing things the way we, think. In other words, things seem to be a certain way, but they weren't. Anxiety causes those sort of things too. Heat, pain, illnesses, whatever. Just mental illness. Okay. Now, that doesn't discount, that these things, maybe these people have seen things that are real and true. All I'm saying is that it's very, very hard to prove to anybody else but the person who experienced it. So you can't use somebody else's experience to prove that there's a God. LSD, my gosh, LSD and PCP, and ecstasy and some of these other things cause people to see all sorts of things. Doesn't mean it's real. Doesn't mean it's true. Many people believed Hitler to be right and correct. Doesn't mean that he was. Hitler was a pretty evil dude. People having similar experiences don't prove the existence of God. Okay? Because remember, so to those of you who's old enough to remember or who have heard, War of the Worlds. When War of the Worlds first came out, it was a radio program early in the 20th century. But it was done on Halloween, and it wasn't told to people that it was a radio program. It came across like a real live broadcast. So a lot of people freaked out, believing, that aliens were truly invading the planet. A lot of people believed it. So multiple people seeing the same thing, although bolsters the case, isn't necessarily true. So let's say that. So again, it does bolster the case if multiple people see the same thing at the same time. But it doesn't prove it absolutely. And so something like that will swing the pendulum towards yes. But again, not absolutely proving the existence of God. So far, a lot of the arguments for the existence of God are subjective and prove nothing. However, I will refer back to the abiogenesis and design arguments that I think are sufficient in building the case strongly for God. But besides those few, so far, up to this point, everything else is subjective. So I'm going to tell you where I'm at. Where I'm at is that because of those arguments, the other arguments, although subjective, kind of just are added on top of, or help bolster the real arguments for the existence of God. And these miracles, or the miracle argument, may help, push us even closer to that, or push me closer to that. All right. So, miracles on command. So this is what I'm looking for. Okay. Now, there are hundreds and thousands of recorded miracles. Most of them revolve around healing and apparitions, or people who are somehow getting some kind of visions of the future. And so yes, absolutely. We're going to go maybe mention a few of these, because I've done a lot of research. I've read thousands, hundreds of, miracles and stories, in this past few weeks. I've been just spending a lot of time on that. So we're going to go through some of those. But in my mind, if we're trying to find absolute proof that there's a God, what you need is somebody who is able to, on command, or by asking, instantaneously produce a miracle, or within a relatively short period of time. In other words, something equivalent to Moses and Elijah. Moses parting the Red Sea, simply by raising his hand and asking God to do it. Elijah calling fire down from heaven by asking God to do it. Those types of things, those types of miracles are absolute proof that there is a God. The problem is, I didn't see them, and neither did you. So, medical miracles and all these other types of miracles definitely bolster the other arguments, for sure. And then again, the personal experiences and that I've had, will help bolster, my belief that there is a God. But again, those are personal. Let's move on. All right. So, here are a few. Okay. So here are a few examples. Okay. Now, I did, again, a lot of research, a lot of watching of videos and reading. Okay. So this is a place in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. And there's a church, the Synagogue Church of All Nations. There was a 25-year-old lady. Now, I saw this video, and again, it was a video. I wasn't there live, so who knows what happened, in between. But this is what I saw. This lady's skin was falling off. It looked like her whole body had like a third-degree sunburn. You could actually see raw flesh. She could barely walk, if walk at all. She couldn't talk at all. There was pus oozing everywhere. And this is a pretty nasty-looking lady. Okay, she couldn't even wear clothes. The only thing she wore, for the sake of the video, I suppose, was a very loose-fitting skirt. She didn't even wear a shirt, because you breathe on her skin wrong, you touch her skin wrong, it's going to all fall off. So this guy, he calls himself Pastor T.B. Joshua from Nigeria. He starts praying for her, right? And he's praying hands for her, and he's laying hands on her. And I'm not the type of person, even as a Christian, who buys into a lot of this faith healing. As a matter of fact, I don't believe in 90 to 99% of it. But I'm watching this video because usually these types of things, when they're seen on TV, or some guy in a wheelchair who can all of a sudden can stand. A guy who was blind who could see. But since you're on TV, you have no idea if that guy, could have walked before. He could just be sitting down in a wheelchair. This, however, looked a little bit more extraordinary. This guy prayed for her, laid hands on her, and she started vomiting this nasty stuff. It didn't look like, anything I've ever vomited up after drinking too much. This weird slime-looking stuff started coming out of her. And all of a sudden, she was able to walk. Again, the walking thing, who knows? That could have been staged. and started to talk. Again, the talking thing could have been staged because, she could have just been silent for the video. However, they showed an after photo a few months later, and again, it's a video, so who knows what happened in between then. And this lady's skin was like perfect. It was smooth as a baby's bottom. So, could that have been staged? Absolutely, it could have been staged. But, her skin was in serious condition, so who knows? She may have actually been healed. But because of all the false prophets and all these, fakes running around, and guys like Peter Popoff, it makes it hard to believe. So, but, this, looked pretty convincing. Okay. And again, there was a doctor there who claimed that this was real. Okay, so now here's this other guy. Okay, the guy's name was Ronald Coyne from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I read some skeptics on this guy. I watched a video of this guy and even saw a doctor apparently confirm what this guy is saying. Here's this guy. When he was a kid, he was trying to get through some barbed wire type of stuff, and it slashed his eye wide open. His eye was so jacked up that they removed his eye. So, and then in place of it, they put a plastic eye in it that could be removed. Okay. So now, the guy goes to one of these faith healing services. He says, "Hey, I got a sore throat. Can you heal me my sore throat?" Lady prays for him, and then he starts to walk away. And the lady says, "Hey, you got a problem with your eye, and I think you're going to get healed. You're going to be able to see through that eye." And the kid was like, "Are you kidding me? It's plastic." So now I watched as this guy, now a grown man, taped up his able eye pretty damn good. So, I mean, again, at least on camera, and at least if you were sitting there as in the audience, it looked like, it was covered up so you couldn't see through it. And then he took his plastic eye out and proceeded to read all sorts of stuff through an empty hole in his eye socket. Driver's licenses and things like this. All right. So then I read a skeptic, and this guy says people do this sort of thing all the time. And they tape and bandage and cover their good eyes, or sometimes both eyes, in some cases. So where it looks like there's no way they can see through, but there's a tiny space, and they've learned to position themselves and their vision in a way that they can see through the tiniest little crack and be able to read. Okay, so what, this guy may be telling the truth, who knows? But there's a pretty convincing skepticism over there. So let's move on. Now here, Peter Popoff. Again, Peter Popoff. This guy's a shame. This guy's a sham. This guy got proved to be an absolute hoax. All right? He was found out to be having a microphone in his ear so nobody could hear. Nobody could see. And his wife and other people were backstage giving him information about people in the audience they had learned from filling out cards prior to entering the show. And he pretended to be hearing stuff from God about their lives. And people were amazed. The microphone was found. He was found out. And the funny thing is people still believe him. Okay, so far, none of these guys, these healers, these on-command faith healers, things that I'm looking to be true, are panning out. Okay, so here, now I'm watching this other video, and I'm reading about this guy. This homeless guy comes in to a subway. He comes into the train, and in front of a whole group of people, tells everybody he's Jesus Christ and levitates. So, and everybody's freaking out. These guys just, only thing he's holding on to is the railings with one hand, his other hand ain't even holding on to anything. And you know what's going on? He's levitating in the middle of the air. People are freaking out. So I did a little bit more research, and it turns out this guy is a street performer. As a matter of fact, he was on America's Got Talent. His name is Special Head. And when else I found out, this same trick was used in India by Hindu yogis for years. It's a trick and nothing more. You see, the robes and the clothes that these guys wear, and in this case, Mr. Special Head, has a special contraption under it with a tiny seat that fits underneath their robes. So they hold onto a cane, and in this case, the pole, and they, sit their feet up like you would maybe cross-legged on a stool or something. And because there's a robe covering it, it looks like you're levitating it. And, of course, this guy admitted at some point that he was tricking everybody. So, again, this is a trick that, when you go to India, you find out that these guys have been doing this for hundreds of years and tricking people. So, again, disproving. Faith healers have been debunked for years. Okay, now I want to get into some different things. Here's this kid, Kelvin Santos, in Brazil, 2 years old. Okay, now this is a great story. All right, this is a great story. This one is one of those, let's push you, towards belief in God. Here's a 2-year-old kid, died of, I think it was pneumonia. Okay? And they're at his funeral, and his dad is begging, please bring my son back. Please bring my son back. Hugging the corpse. The doctors had already confirmed this kid to be dead. And all of a sudden, the kid's body starts shaking, and he sits up and says, "Daddy, can I have a glass of water?" They get him a glass of water, and within about less than 5 minutes, I think it was, he laid back down and was dead again. There's a whole group of people that saw this happen all at the same time. Okay, the parents saw it. People freaked out. They went to the doctor claiming a misdiagnosis, but then another doctor confirmed that no, this kid now is indeed dead. This kid's dead. All right? And so there's a doctor confirming that this kid was dead twice. And the kid sits up after his father begs for his life and asks for a cup of water. This tells me, although again I wasn't there, but if this is true, then my gosh, there's a lot of evidence for God. But again, it's a medical thing, so this could be a science or some kind of natural phenomenon that we just haven't discovered yet. Now, I'm leaning towards God, because that's a pretty freaky thing, and this guy actually asked for his son. Okay. Now let's see. Texas. This is another. Okay. So here's this guy in Texas, jacked his foot up pretty bad, right? He goes to the doctor, finds out these bone fragments in his toes that are broken off from his toes. Okay. Doctor's, pretty sure that there's nothing they can do about it, and it's pretty painful, so they're going to have to kind of stay there. Him and some of his buddies from church started praying, and the guy goes back a little bit later because there's no pain left in his foot, and the x-ray shows no bone fragments. And the doctor wasn't quite sure what had happened. He's like, I don't know what happened. Tried to make up a bunch of excuses, but even his excuses, he says, he wasn't sure. So again, it could be something happened, some kind of anomaly, right? Some kind of natural phenomenon. But, the doctor can't explain it. And it happened after he prayed. So again, we're leaning towards, wow. Something happened here. And based upon, again, prior arguments that, do make more sense, like the abiogenesis arguments and the design arguments, this is really building a case for the existence of a God. All right, Russia. This one's kind of interesting. Not so much medical. I mean, it is medical, but it's not medical like when we used to see. He's this 11-year-old kid in Russia. Right, and he heals people by putting them in front of a mirror. And so the first thing he does is he has them stand or sit in front of a mirror. And because he can see their aura, so to speak, and the aura glows dark in areas that there's a disease. As the kid got older and more in tune with his so-called gift, he was able to also learn how to diagnose what it was based upon the color of the aura and the placement of it. And then he began being able to heal them. There's lots of people apparently, including his teachers and his parents and friends, that claim that this kid is healing them. Apparently his dad was an atheist. He didn't believe any of what was going on until his dad got sick and was cured. Again, I'm not there. It could be some strange phenomenon, but guess what? And right now it can't be explained, and based upon prior arguments, this is really, really bolstering the case for the factors of God. Again, not solid proof though. Not solid proof. There's no solid proof that any of this stuff is legit. There's no solid proof that that there's a God. But guess what? Man, we sure are making a case. And if I had to weigh things now, God or no God, I am heavily leaning towards God. All right, now, 2014. All right, this one's kind of interesting. This guy was in Virginia, right? 2014, he's driving demolition derby, gets thrown out of the car. Every bone in his body gets broken. His kidney failures, hemorrhages all over his body, strokes, hemorrhages, right? So in other words, ruptures and like all sorts of, things happening to all his internal organs, okay? The doctor said, listen, dude, he's going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life if he stays alive, if he does make it. Well, apparently the guy was pretty popular, or somebody he knew was pretty, had a lot of friends, because his family gathered a prayer group of thousands, and they all wore red shirts and all sorts of red stuff, and they prayed for this guy. And then, just this guy's about to die, and they're about to pull the plug, and the doctor said, let me try one more thing. Hooked him up to a machine. Now, mind you, the machine could have saved him. But there's a very little chance that the machine was what saved him, because these doctors didn't even believe it was going to save him. And because it wasn't used for trauma, the things that he had. It was used for transplants. So all of a sudden this dude woke up. He wasn't a vegetable anymore, and he began a process of healing. He's better. Again, can't prove anything, because it could be some kind of science or some kind of anomaly that we don't know about yet. And because, technically they hook him up to a machine. But all the stuff that is used to heal trauma like he had failed. They hooked him up to a machine that's used for transplants, something completely different. Again, not absolute proof, but man, it's looking pretty good. But again, medical miracles. Most of the miracles that you see nowadays are medical, or in the case of, Lourdes and Fatima and some of these things, they're apparitions. Things that, seem miraculous. Things that, seem like they, could make a big case for God. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of these cases, but nothing that's absolute proof. Because we could be having something that we just don't understand yet, right? And it may not even be what we think it is. Again, we're putting a real heavy case for God, but no absolute proof. So now, what I'm looking for. Now, this is where I'm gonna get a little bit interesting. I hope this isn't boring for you. But it's because it's life-changing for me. All right, so remember, in my mind, The only way to absolutely prove through a miracle that there's a God is if some guy can go, poof, make something appear. Call fire down. Part the Red Sea. Say, hey, you know what? It's going to rain. Bam. Something, anything that's instantaneous, done on command, or by asking or praying. So, first of all, I want to premise this final part on saying that kind of stuff happens all the time. People pray for stuff and it happens, sometimes right away. All right, I'm going to tell you a few personal instances which have come up, which have really, again, bolstered, the fact that, yes, I believe that there's a God. Going into this journey objectively, being willing to accept the possibility that there might not be. Guess what? Everything that I've seen so far, everything I've presented to you so far, and even more, because I don't tell you everything that I've studied. It's been hours and hours and hours and hours researching and studying. Shows me that, there's a God so far. We'll see where the next video goes, that maybe that'll change. So, I remember an instance with my aunt in the hospital, emphysema, I believe. Right, she was dying. She was bloated to nobody's belief. She smoked packs and packs of cigarettes for years, and she was dead girl walking. They had her in the hospital, but they weren't really expecting her to live. They weren't expecting her to make it out. Okay, so my dad and I are going to visit. There happens to be other family members there, but my dad and I are going to visit, and I had just become a Christian recently, maybe within less than a year. And I am now praying, okay, God, this she's dying. I don't know if she knows you. Let me, help her come to know you. What do I do? Pray for her to get better. All the standard stuff as a young Christian. Well, God spoke to me, and He spoke to me very clear in my heart. When you get there, you respectfully ask everybody to leave the room, and then you shut the door, and you talk to her, and you pray for her, and you pray with her. So I'm thinking, my gosh, that's kind of like strange, and they're going to think I'm weird. But I'm like, okay, I believe this is you. Let's do it. So I got there, and I politely asked my aunts, my uncles, and my dad to step out, including my uncle, who was the husband of this aunt here. They all looked at me funny, but they did what I asked, which was even stranger if you know my family. And she kind of looked at me funny. I spoke to her about Jesus Christ, about the gospel. I prayed with her, to believe in Jesus Christ. We prayed that she would believe and trust in God, and that was it. Everybody came back in and just visited with her. A few days later, I got a phone call from my uncle, not the uncle who was married to her, my other uncle and a few other people, saying, "What did you do? What did you say?" I'm like, "What?" I thought they were mad. She went home. They let her out of the hospital. She got better. So then I talked to her on the phone, and she was like the second we prayed, I just started feeling better, like I've never felt before. And I just got better. And so I thought, that's a miracle to me. All right? I remember a friend of mine needed to renew his driver's license, and for whatever reason, I can't remember the exact circumstances, but he needed to take the test. And it was the last day, and he was going to lose his driver's license if he didn't retake his test. that day. It was the last day. And we went to the DMV, and they were like, sorry, dude, it's raining out. We can't take a test like this when it's raining. So we went to a little diner, ate some breakfast, trying to figure out what the hell to do, how to help him out. And while he was talking to me, drinking his coffee, I started praying for God to bring sunshine. Within 20 minutes, the clouds moved, the sunshine went away, he took his test, and passed. Coincidence? Sure, could have been a coincidence. Absolutely could have been a coincidence. Because, rain clouds move all the time. Well, I thought it was kind of funny what happened after I prayed. There have been times when I've seen physical demons or apparitions, in my bedroom, multiple times, choking me, trying to assault me, and then I end up casting them out. Could it be in my imagination? Maybe. But what happens when it happens to me while I'm sleeping, and it happens to somebody else at the same time, and me yelling and casting these things out affect him? I was in Bible college, and I had been telling my roommate about these things that used to happen to me. And then one night, it happened to me again in Bible college. And the next morning, we're laying in bed and said, hey, did you get demons attacking you? And, were they like, and I said, yeah, why? He said, because they were attacking me too. But then you said something and they just went away. Okay. Now, I'm with another buddy out in the middle of nowhere, out by some farms. Used to go there at night, sometimes in the afternoon, and hang out, pray, just be alone. Took my friend with me. And we are talking. And we're talking about the devil, and we're talking about Satan and Satan worship, and just some pretty deep stuff. And he starts freaking out. We're standing, out in, out there, next to the car, and he's freaking out. He's like, we gotta go. I'm like, dude, chill out. We got plenty of time. Don't worry about it. I don't have to. Neither of us have to wake up in the morning. No, you don't understand. We gotta go. And then he says again, for a third time, we really need to go. And so, right after he said that, behind him, this little ball of light appeared right behind his head, and it started to move around and expand. It started to take the form of something that looked human or humanoid. But to be honest with you, I didn't let it get that far. And I grabbed him and I said, let's get the hell out of here. We jumped in the car and drove off. So while we're driving, I'm explaining to him what happens. He goes, yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you. Lightning struck 3 times with no sound, no heat. Out of the sky, blam. The problem is there wasn't any clouds and it wasn't no thunderstorms that night. It struck a little bit behind me. And then second time, it struck a little bit closer to me. And the third time that he said we need to go, it struck right behind me. No sound, I didn't feel nothing. And that was about the time that apparition appeared. All right. Now, we're going to, a bunch of these type of things. Now, here's another one. Not from me. So now, in my effort to find some miracles, apart from healings, because, again, although those are pretty convincing, who knows? There could be some kind of science or something behind it. Okay. So now, this is cool. So I put out this thing on Facebook. Anybody got any stories, any kind of miracles? I use the Moses and Elijah examples. So there's a lady on my friends list from Hungary. Says, oh, I got to write a whole book. I said, okay, talk to me. On 2 separate occasions, while living in Hungary in a village, her and her husband were driving, and on both instances, near fatal, maybe possibly fatal car crashes would have been avoided. Were avoided. One of them with a semi truck, an 18-wheeler. And how they were avoided was amazing. Because, see, the other vehicle passed right through them, like they weren't even there. Like a ghost or something. I wanted to make sure, I heard this is Facebook, she's typing this. I'm like, I want to make sure I understand what you said. And she said, yep. They passed right through us. Sounds like a miracle to me. And then another lady answered, and commented on her and said, yeah. That happened to me too. When I was with my mother one day. This lady's from Florida. Wow. Then of course there's the case of my sister who had a jacked up thing in the back of her eye when she was a kid, baby, and for the first few years of her life. Some lady prayed for it, went away. Who knows? Could have been, just something just went away with time. But, it didn't, go away shortly after this lady prayed for it. But I think the car thing is amazing. Because this is somebody, like a real life person. Not just some story you read on Facebook. This is a lady actually commenting, who is known by a lot of the people on my Facebook page. So, this leaves me, at this point, with the conclusion that although, miracles, can prove God, in order to absolutely have them be the one thing used to prove God, you would actually need to see them, and they would actually need to be something that can be, like I said, materialized on command. However, given the arguments from before, prior videos, not the subjective ones, but the ones I keep bringing up, things like design, things like abiogenesis, and things like that, the miracles really, 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 stack on top of that foundation really well and push things towards, yes, there is a God. Absolutely. And the things that I've experienced personally, that I was reminded of, because, I had forgot about some of this stuff until I'm doing this research and started this journey. Then I realized, wow, yes, I am convinced that there's a God. I don't know what the next video is going to be, because this isn't pre-planned, until I start doing my research. I don't know if I'm going to still keep hitting on the existence of God thing, since it seems like I'm pretty well established in my mind that there is. Or if we're going to move on to who is God, can he be known? What religion is right? Are any of them right? Is there one God? Is there multiple gods? These are a lot of things I want to hit at some point. So, and then maybe, once we establish that, we'll talk about different doctrines and, or not, depending upon, where that part of it takes us. Anyway, my friends, God bless. I hope I didn't bore you, but I thought the miracle thing was kind of important. And again, that wasn't intended to be such a long thing. I didn't expect much out of it. God bless. Check you later.